2.2 billion won. That is a number. Just a number. Digits on a screen. Pixels on a holographic display in a rainy alley where nobody is watching and nobody cares. Unless it is your number. Unless that number represents the cost of keeping your father alive. Unless every single one of it has been accumulated through illegal dungeon raids, black market loot sales, loan sharks breathing down your neck, and 2 years of being the most dangerous unlicensed smuggler in a city that does not know your name. Unless you are 17 years old and that number is the only thing standing between your father and death. This is not a story about a chosen one. This is not a story about a boy who was always destined for greatness, who had powerful friends and a clean path and a world that was rooting for him. This is the story of Jaryong, son of a man the world decided to throw away. Armed with nothing but a wooden staff, techniques carved into his bones by a father who was already dying when he taught them, and a kind of cold, technical brilliance that the elite institutions of this world have never seen walk through their front door. He is about to walk through theirs, and they are absolutely not ready. Warrior High School Dungeon Raid Department. Season 1. Every chapter. The complete story. Let us go. Chapter 1, The Smuggler and the Debt, Rain. The kind of rain that does not feel cleansing. That feels like the sky is just adding to the weight of everything already pressing down. Cold, gray, relentless. The kind of rain that a city produces when it is doing what cities do, generating problems faster than any individual can solve them. In an alley somewhere in that rain stands a boy. Jaryong, 17 years old. Dark eyes that are always doing something, never resting, never unfocused, always processing the environment the way a calculator processes numbers. Automatic constant. Relentless. He is staring at a holographic bill projected from his wrist device. The screen is blue-white in the gray rain. The number on it is 2,200,000,000 won. 2.2 billion. Let that number sit with you for a moment. Not because it is abstract. Because it is not abstract to Jaryong. Every digit of it has a face. Every digit of it is a day his father did not die. Every digit of it was purchased through risk that most licensed professionals with full equipment and guild backup would not take. He earned that number in unlicensed dungeons, alone. Without certification, without authorization, without any of the protections that the legal rating system provides. He earned it as a smuggler. Now, before we go any further, let us talk about the world Jaryong lives in. Because to understand why a 17-year-old boy is standing in a rainy alley staring at a 2 billion won hospital bill, you need to understand the world that produced him. After the dimensional walls between Earth and the monster realm collapsed, an event simply called the Convergence, the world rebuilt itself around a single new reality. Dungeons appear constantly, everywhere, and if they are not cleared by ranked awakened individuals, they overflow and destroy everything in their radius. The system that manages this is brutal and efficient. Awakened individuals, people born with or who developed the capacity to channel the mana energy of the monster realm, are ranked. Rank F at the bottom, handling the weakest dungeons, earning accordingly. Rank A at the top of the working professional tier, handling the most complex raids. And above that, almost mythical, almost never seen levels that the story will eventually make very relevant. Your rank is your worth. Your rank is your access. Your rank determines which schools your children can attend, which hospitals will treat you properly, which guilds will take your calls. And if you operate without a rank, if you enter dungeons without a license, loot monsters without authorization, sell the materials on the black market, that is smuggling. And it carries serious consequences: prison, blacklisting, complete erasure from the system that governs this new world. So why does Jaryong do it? Because his father, Seong, is lying in a hospital bed with a condition called mana erosion poisoning. His mana circuits, the internal network of channels through which an awakened individual flows their power, have been destroyed. Turned into a wasteland. A biological devastation that has left him comatose, his body kept alive by equipment that costs money Jaryong does not have through any legal means. The world knows Yu Xiong as a coward. That is the story. That is the official record. Yu Xiong was part of a 7-star raid, one of the highest difficulty dungeon operations possible, and when things went wrong, the record says he failed. He abandoned his party. He retreated while others died. The world decided this and moved on. Jaryong knows something different. Knows it in the marrow of his bones, in the techniques his father taught him with hands that were already poisoned and shaking. He knows his father is not a coward. He knows the record is wrong. But knowing something and being able to prove it are very different things when you are 17 and broke and the system has already made its decision. So he does what he can. He smuggles. He pays the bills. He keeps his father breathing. And he waits. But waiting has a cost too. Because the money from black market dungeon loot is never quite enough, and the gap is always there, and the gap was filled until recently by a loan from Ma Jachel. The name alone does something to the atmosphere of any room it is spoken in. Ma Jachel is a lone shark in the underground economy that exists at the intersection of the dungeon industry and organized crime. He lends money to people who cannot get it anywhere else, at rates that ensure he always gets more back than he put in, and he has enforcers who make sure the math always works out in his favor. Jaryong owes Ma Jachel money. And Ma Jachel has decided that today is a good day to remind him of that. In the alley, the same rainy alley, the same holographic number on the screen, Ma Jachel's enforcer arrives. His name is Lee Pil Jayo. Rank D Tank. A certified professional whose entire purpose in this moment is to physically communicate the importance of paying on time. He lunges. Mana reinforced fist, the kind of strike that leaves marks on reinforced walls. Jaryong does not flinch. Not because he is reckless. Not because he is performing bravado. Because he already knows what he is going to do. Has already done the calculation. Has already identified the geometry of the strike, the angle, the force vector, the specific point in Lee Pil Jayo's mana flow that is going to end this engagement before it properly begins. He uses the needle. This is a technique passed down by Yu Xiong, developed over 20 years of combat, refined to a theoretical perfection that Jaryong has spent his entire conscious life learning to execute. The concept is this: instead of meeting force with force, you focus everything, your speed, your weight, your mana, into an infinitesimal point. Like a needle finding the gap between armor plates. Not pushing against the defender's strength. Threading between it. He uses a wooden staff. Not enchanted. Not mana reinforced. A wooden staff. And with it, with a technique refined to surgical precision, he hits Lee Pil Jayo's vital mana vein at exactly the right point. The professional enforcer. The rank D tank. The man whose entire professional existence is being too strong to deal with, he drops. Ma Jachel watches his enforcer crumple to the wet alley floor and does the calculation that Ma Jachel types do when their intimidation fails. This person is more complicated than I budgeted for. The debt does not go away. But the immediate physical problem does. And Jaryong, standing in the rain over a downed professional with a wooden staff, looks at the holographic number on his wrist screen one more time. 2.2 billion. He needs a bigger job. He accepts a mission. High risk, high reward. The target, royal jelly. A rare dungeon material that can, and this is the part that makes it worth the danger, forcibly increase an individual's limit of talent. The biological cap that determines how high a person's rank can go. Most awakened hit that ceiling and stay there forever. Royal jelly can move it. For Jaryong, this is not just about the money. Royal jelly is connected to possibilities for his father that he has been thinking about since he first heard what it does. The dungeon, the dark jungle, rank 2. Dangerous. Not impossible for someone of Jaryong's actual capability level, but officially far above what an unranked smuggler should be attempting. He goes in anyway. Because that is what Jaryong does. The dark jungle dungeon lives up to its name. Dense, overgrown, a dungeon ecosystem that has been developing long enough to create something that feels genuinely alive, in the hostile, predatory way that the best dungeons feel alive. The air has the particular quality of concentrated mana that signals high difficulty territory. The kind of air that makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up for reasons your rational mind cannot fully articulate. Jaryong moves through it with the fluency of someone who has been in worse. And then he hears something that stops him. Not a monster. Not a dungeon trap. Something that his dungeon-honed senses identify almost immediately as wrong for this environment. A person, fighting, losing. He finds her in a clearing. Jin Seram. A student at Warrior High School, identifiable by her equipment, which is high-grade, clearly institutional issue, the kind of gear that money and connections provide. She is facing a juvenile Titan ape. 3-star danger rating. A creature that is, on any objective assessment, significantly beyond what she should be attempting alone. The equipment is excellent. The technique is not. Seram is fighting with the theoretical knowledge of someone who is trained in controlled environments. She knows what to do in a technical sense, but her survival instinct is zero. She is relying on gear to compensate for the gap between what she knows and what she can actually execute under real pressure. The Titan ape is not impressed by good gear. Jaryong intervenes. Not dramatically. Not with a speech. He steps into the engagement, reads the Titan ape's mana flow in real time, the way it distributes power through its body before a strike, the pattern of its movement, the physical tells that give away what it is going to do before it does it and hits it. Precisely. Correctly, lethally. The Titan ape, a creature that has been making a student with top-grade institutional equipment look helpless, goes down. Seram stares at the boy who just saved her. No high-spec equipment. Cheap clothes. A wooden staff that looks like it came from a hardware store. And he just dismantled a monster that was beating her with the kind of calm, analytical efficiency that says this was not a close thing for him. You are not from Warrior High, she says. Not a question. No, Jaryong says. Then how did you? 550 million won, Jaryong says. She blinks. What? Your life, Jaryong says. And the royal jelly. 550 million won. That is my fee. And here is where Jaryong's character becomes clear in a way that pure action never quite manages. He saved her. Of course he saved her. Leaving someone in a dungeon with a monster is something he simply does not do. But he also lives in a world with real costs and a hospital bill that does not pause for heroics. He saved her and he is charging for it. Because sentiment is something he cannot afford and competence is the only currency he has. Seram, terrified, grateful, still processing the Titan ape's body, agrees. But before they can get to the exit, the dungeon has more to offer. Yang Duyan and his crew. Duyan is a villain, the specific term for unlicensed adventurers who prey on other dungeon runners rather than clearing the dungeons themselves. He and his people have been following the trail of the royal jelly, knowing someone went in for it, planning to take it from whoever came out. He has good intelligence. He has numbers. And he has as his trump card a shade jacket. The shade jacket is an illegal artifact. Rank B classification. Its mechanism is brutal and elegant in the worst way. It consumes the user's own blood as fuel. The more blood it processes, the higher it pushes the user's physical stats. A rank E combatant wearing an active shade jacket can operate at rank D+ or higher. The cost is obvious. You are literally burning your own body for power. But in a dungeon confrontation where the alternative is losing, people make that calculation. Duyan makes it now. He was a genius once. Actually evaluated for Warrior High. He carries that history with the particular sourness of someone who was promised a future and then watched it not arrive. He looks at Jaryong, an unranked smuggler with a wooden stick, and sees someone who has no business existing in his world. He is about to learn something important about that assessment. Duyan in the shade jacket is genuinely dangerous. Let us be clear about that. He is not a paper tiger. The artifact is doing exactly what it promises, pushing his physical output into ranges that a certified rank D professional would respect. His speed with the jacket active leaves visible trails in the air. His strikes arrive with force that would compromise structural materials. He fights with a berserker-style, forward aggression, overwhelming force. The strategy of someone who knows their power window is limited by how much blood they can burn and wants to end the fight before the cost becomes prohibitive. He is objectively a significant threat. But Jaryong does not see a significant threat. He sees a calculation that needs solving. This is the thing about Jaryong that the story makes clear over and over. He does not experience combat the way most people do. He does not have the adrenaline response that makes people react with instinct and hope. He has something colder and more precise. He reads the fight. He identifies the technical structure of what his opponent is doing, the patterns, the timing, the mechanical moments where the system has gaps. And the shade jacket, for all its power, has a gap. The gap is this: when the jacket transitions between attack cycles, the brief window between one explosive movement and the next, there is a delay. A tiny delay. Fractions of a second. The biological cost of the blood fuel system creating a micro-pause in the power delivery. Duyan does not know this about his own artifact. Or if he knows it abstractly, he's never fought someone capable of exploiting it. Jaryong is capable of exploiting it. He uses the swing. This is the second of his father's techniques. Where the needle is about focusing force into a single point to pierce through defense, the swing is about something more sophisticated, redirecting the opponent's kinetic force back at them, amplified. Not blocking. Not matching force with force. Using their force against them. The physics of it are elegant. The execution requires a level of timing and technical precision that most professional fighters spend careers trying to achieve. Duyan launches his signature assault. The jacket flares. The air blurs. He is moving at speeds that make him functionally invisible to the human eye in its normal operating mode. Jaryong's eyes do not operate in their normal mode. He reads the trajectory. Identifies the delay window in the jacket's transition. Times the swing with the specific precision that his father's training built into his nervous system over years of repetition. Duyan's fist hits nothing but blue-tinted air. And the kinetic force of that miss, amplified, redirected, comes back. The former genius, the man who was promised a future at Warrior High and ended up a dungeon villain with a blood-drinking jacket, hits the dungeon floor. Hard. His jacket sparks and goes dark. His boosted stats evaporate. He is just a person lying on the ground, coughing, looking up at a kid with a wooden staff who hit him with his own punch. Jaryong looks down at him, talent. He says quietly, "You do not even know what that word means." He does not explain what he means. He does not need to. The fight is the explanation. Because Duyan had talent, real talent, evaluated talent, the kind that gets you noticed for Warrior High. What Jaryong has is something else. Something that talent is just the starting material for. Something built through the specific, agonizing, repetitive process of getting beaten by a dungeon 1,000 times until you stop making the mistake that let it beat you. Effort. At a level that talent cannot compete with. Duyan is neutralized. His crew, seeing their leader down, makes the rational decision to not continue this engagement. Jaryong secures the royal jelly. Gets Saram to the exit. And outside the dungeon, in the gray light, she looks at him with an expression that has been shifting since the Titan ape and has now settled into something that looks like recognition. "Do you know who your father is?" she asks. He stares at her. "You are the son of the dragon slayer," she says. "Yu Xiang." He does not respond to that directly. He never responds to that directly. The name is both the most important thing in his life and the thing he is most protective of, the wound that does not close. "The fee," he says. "Join Warrior High," Saram says. Not an answer to the fee. A different kind of answer. You need better equipment. Better mana circuits. The status that only the Academy can provide. And she pauses, they need to know what you really are. Jaryong looks away. The seed is planted. He does not water it yet. But it is there. He walks away into the gray. The royal jelly is delivered. The debt with Ma Jachul gets another stay of execution. The hospital account gets another payment. And somewhere in Jaryong's mind, underneath the calculations and the debt schedules and the constant low-level operational management of being alone in a world that does not care about him, something Saram said is sitting quietly. Join Warrior High, not yet. But the story is moving there. The entire logic of what is happening is moving there. And before it does, the world is going to test Jaryong in a few more ways first. Let us talk about the royal jelly for a moment. Because this substance is more significant than it first appeared. The technical specification. Royal jelly is one of the few naturally occurring materials in the dungeon ecosystem that can forcibly increase an individual's limit of talent. The biological cap. The ceiling that every awakened individual hits when they have reached the maximum rank their genetics and mana circuit structure can support. Most people hit that ceiling and stay there. The system is designed around this. Rank classifications assume that once categorized, a person's ceiling is fixed. It is the foundation of the entire social structure. You are what your rank says you are permanently. Royal Jelly says, not necessarily. For Jaryong, this is significant beyond the money. His father's mana circuits have been destroyed by a poison that is specifically about the destruction of mana pathways. If there is a substance that can force a body to rebuild those pathways to push past biological limits. He files this away, deep. Under possibilities I am not ready to think about yet. But the royal jelly is delivered. Saram gets what she came for. And the aftermath of the dark jungle dungeon starts producing consequences that neither of them fully anticipated. Because Saram, who has seen what Jaryong can do, who has now identified him as the son of the Dragon Slayer, goes back to Warrior High carrying something that changes the school's political atmosphere before Jaryong has even walked through the door. The knowledge that Yu Xiong's son is real, alive, and operating at a level that should be impossible. Before we move forward, let us spend a moment on Yang Duyan. Because his defeat is more than just an early action sequence. It is a statement about what this story is actually about. Duyan was a genuine talent. Evaluated for Warrior High. Recognized by the system as having exceptional potential. He had the scores, the ability assessments, the technical profile of someone who should have made it. He did not make it. The specific reasons are not fully detailed in his defeat scene, but the implication is clear. The gap between his talent and the opportunities that were supposed to follow was filled by something, money, connections, the specific currency of the elite system that he did not have enough of. So he became a villain. A dungeon predator. Someone who takes from others rather than building from the foundation his talent provided. And here is the difference between Duyan and Jaryong that the story is being very deliberate about. Both of them had something to offer. Both of them started with ability. Both of them faced a system that was not fair to them. Duyan responded by taking shortcuts. The shade jacket. The preying on other runners. The belief that his talent entitled him to the outcome and that the failure to receive that outcome was someone else's fault to remedy. Jaryong responded by going deeper. By taking the talent his father gave him not as a gift but as a training, as 1,000 hours of repetition and failure and getting back up and building something on top of it that shortcuts cannot replicate. Talent. Jaryong said, "You do not even know what that word means." He was not being cruel. He was being accurate. Talent is a starting point. What Jaryong understands, what his father's training inscribed into him, is that talent without effort is just potential that has not decided yet whether to amount to anything. An effort without talent. Effort without talent, pushed far enough and long enough and hard enough, starts to look indistinguishable from something much greater than talent ever produces on its own. The chapters covering this early arc are setting up something important. Jaryong is not going to walk into Warrior High and win because he's secretly always been the strongest. He is going to walk in because 2 years of illegal dungeons and his father's impossible-to-learn techniques have built him into something that the elite system literally does not have a category for. He is not a hidden genius. He is a forged weapon. And the forge is about to get even hotter. The story moves. We leave the alleys and the black market and the rainy confrontations, and we step into the world that Jaryong has been orbiting. The clean, white, aggressively well-funded world of elite raiding institutions. Warrior High School. The gates alone communicate everything about what this place thinks of itself. Massive, marble white, built with the specific architectural confidence of an institution that has never seriously considered the possibility that it could be wrong about anything. The kind of place that assumes the people who belong inside it already know they belong, and that anyone who has to ask is probably at the wrong address. Saram navigates this world, but not easily. She has high-spec equipment and a warrior high enrollment, but she is what the school's social structure calls a mixed-blood, half-elf heritage. In the specifically ugly way that elite institutions tend to generate and enforce social hierarchies, this makes her an outsider inside a place she technically belongs to. She has a sister, or rather, a figure occupying the role, Aisha Eskersnaram. High-ranked, technically exceptional, and carrying the particular casual cruelty of someone who has never had to question whether they deserve to be where they are. Saram's position in the school's social hierarchy is complicated. She has the enrollment. She does not have the acceptance. But Saram has something that the school's hierarchy has not fully processed yet. She knows what is coming. She's seen Jaryong fight. She knows the son of the Dragon Slayer is alive and operating in the slums, and she has an idea that is going to require her uncle's cooperation. That uncle, Zeke Eskersnaram. Zeke Eskersnaram is not a minor figure. He is the Republic of Korea's #1 healer. A white class ranker, a classification that exists above the standard ranking system, reserved for individuals whose abilities have crossed into something that the regular rank framework simply does not have the resolution to describe accurately. He is, in any room he enters, the most important person present. Not because of ego, because of the objective technical reality of what he is. He does not believe in hidden gems from the slums. He does not believe in potential that has not been measured, documented, and validated by proper institutional process. He views Jaryong before meeting him as either a fraud or a threat to his niece. Saram convinces him to run an assessment, one test. See what the smuggler from the slums actually is. Zeke agrees. Because he's thorough. And because disproving a fraud is as useful as identifying genuine talent. The testing facility is clinical, sterile. Every surface designed to measure rather than impress. High-spec sensors in the walls. Equipment that represents the current peak of Manhwa measurement technology. The centerpiece, the Gear Drone Pro version 9.22. This machine is Naruto. Its technical specifications represent the current ceiling of combat simulation technology. It calculates trajectory, mana density, and evasion frames in real time, processing thousands of data points per second. It is designed for use by Rank C professionals. It is designed to push Rank C professionals. Jaryong is unranked. On paper, this machine should dismantle him in seconds. Start the simulation, Zeke says. The drone activates. Mana pulses begin firing, not in a predictable pattern, but in the calculated randomness of a machine designed to find and exploit the gaps in a combatant's evasion capability. To any other unranked individual, this is a wall of blurs. The speed, the unpredictability, the rate of fire, it is completely overwhelming for someone without the training and ability to process it. Jaryong does not dodge the pulses. He skips between them. This is the first time the story formally names the technique, but it has been visible in everything Jaryong has done since Chapter 1. Frame skipping. The ability to move his body only during the precise milliseconds when the drone's sensors are transitioning between scans. To identify the rhythm of the machine, the micro gaps in its targeting cycle and exist only in those gaps. He is not faster than the drone. He is smarter than the drone's targeting system. The sensors begin to smoke. The Gear Drone Pro version 9.22, a machine designed to measure the limits of rank C professionals, cannot find this boy's limit. It keeps escalating its output. Keeps trying. Keeps failing. The processing load of trying to calculate evasion patterns that should not be possible for an unranked individual is exceeding the machine's tolerance. Zeke, watching the monitors, leans forward. His expression, which started as professional skepticism, is doing something complicated now. The numbers on the screens are telling him something that his worldview is not fully prepared to accept. He makes a decision. He steps into the arena. Zeke Eskersnaram, White Class Ranker, Korea's #1 healer. A man whose level of existence most people can only conceptualize theoretically. He does not strike to kill. He strikes to force a reaction. To find the ceiling by applying the kind of pressure that cannot be analyzed or sidestepped, the raw physical reality of what white class output feels like up close. Jaryong's body reacts faster than his conscious mind. 2 years of dungeons. His father's training. The specific nervous system education of a person who has been in real danger, constantly, and whose body has learned to process threat at a level that bypasses the analytical step. He does not try to trade with white class. Nobody trades with white class and wins. What he does instead is compress everything, every unit of mana available to him, every ounce of physical weight, every frame of technical precision his father's teaching built into his muscles, into the needle. Zeke closes the distance. Jaryong's wooden staff makes contact. A thin line of blood appears on Zeke Eskersnaram's cheek, the room. The sensors. The machines. Everything stops. A commoner from the slums. An unranked 17-year-old with a wooden staff. Has just drawn blood from a white class ranker. In the history of this testing facility, in the history of this institution, there is no precedent for that sentence. Zeke touches the blood on his cheek. His expression is unreadable in the way that very controlled people's expressions are unreadable when they are processing something significant. I have seen plenty of people like you, he says. His voice is a low vibration. And then, because Zeke is above all things a professional who operates on evidence, no. That is not true. I have never seen anyone like you. Zeke stops the test. Not because Jaryong failed. Because he has seen enough. Because the data is producing a picture that requires processing, not more data. He analyzes what just happened with the clinical detachment of someone who has spent his career measuring human capability and has just encountered a measurement that breaks his existing scale. The first thing he identifies is the mechanism of what Jaryong did. It was not raw power. It was not a talent-based ability that manifested fully formed and required no development. What he witnessed was something rarer and, in its own way, more impressive: technical efficiency pushed to its theoretical maximum. Every other person Zeke has assessed, and he has assessed everyone, the top students, the A-rank professionals, the exceptional talents that the system produces once a generation, every one of them operates with some percentage of wasted motion. Wasted mana. Wasted physical output that dissipates without achieving its intended effect. Jaryong operates at something approaching zero waste. Not because he's more talented than the exceptional people Zeke has tested before. Because he has spent 2 years of actual, uncontrolled, consequence-bearing dungeon work, failing at individual techniques until the failure was impossible. Until the only version of each technique that his body retained was the version that worked every time under real conditions. A flashback makes this concrete: young Jaryong in a dungeon alone failing a technique. Getting hit. Getting back up. Trying again. Failing differently. Getting hit differently. Getting back up again. Not in a training hall. not with a safety net. In a real dungeon, where failing means injury and failing badly means worse. That is the factory that produced what Zeke just tested. Not a talent. Not a gift. A weapon forged in the most brutal furnace available, necessity. Zeke recognizes this. And the recognition does something to him, something he did not expect. Because Zeke knows exactly who this boy's father is. He knows the name Yu Xiong. And looking at this boy, at this product of Yu Xiong's teaching, amplified by 2 years of survival in the slums, he is seeing something he did not think the world still produced. He stops the test. He processes. Then he orders a biometric analysis. The results come back. And here is where Warrior High School, where every elite institution that is about to encounter Yu Jaryong, gets its first real indication of the problem they are dealing with. Strength rank B, ability rank B, stamina rank B. To a civilian, this looks like a decent score. Rank B across all 3 categories: solid, professional, respectable. Nothing that screams singular greatness. To a professional, to Zeke Eskersnaram, who has seen thousands of assessments, this result is something close to terrifying. Here is why, in the standard model of awakened development, individual power comes from specialization. A tank-class fighter has exceptional strength but moderate ability. A ranger has exceptional ability but limited stamina. A healer has specialized ability in a specific direction that enhances others while leaving their own combat stats relatively modest. The biological reason for this is that the human body, even a mana-enhanced one, has a distribution limit. The total budget of enhancement that any given individual's biology can support tends to concentrate in one area. Peak performance in one category usually means moderate or lower performance in the others. An individual with all 3 stats at rank B is not decent. An individual with all 3 stats at rank B is a statistical impossibility. The technical term is a 1 in 500,000 distribution. One person in 500,000 awakened individuals has this kind of balanced output across all primary stats. The reason it matters is not just the numbers, it is the implication of the numbers. Balanced rank B across all 3 categories means Jaryong can execute techniques that would require other people to choose between power and speed, or between endurance and precision. He does not have to choose. He can do it all simultaneously. Which means the needle, which requires absolute precision, can be executed with full strength behind it. Which means frame skipping, which requires maximum ability, can be sustained without burning his stamina. Which means techniques that other fighters can only hit once or twice before the biological cost becomes prohibitive, are techniques that Jaryong can chain. Zeke tells Saram what he's found. Jaryong is a monster, he says. Hidden in unranked skin. But there is a catch. There is always a catch. He needs equipment that can handle this output, Zeke says. His body is generating force that his weapons cannot transmit without breaking. He has been holding himself back not just strategically, he has been holding himself back physically, because the alternative is his own mana exploding the weapons in his hands. A wooden staff. 2 years of dungeons with the kind of output that can draw blood from a white class ranker, holding back because the weapon cannot keep up. The weapons need to catch up. And the only place to get equipment that can handle what Yu Jaryong actually is not in any standard atelier, any licensed supplier, any institutional gear program. Zeke knows a place. Zeke takes Jaryong somewhere that is not on any government map. The underground blacksmith. Hidden, deliberately, necessarily, inside a rank 4 dungeon called the Boiling Abyss. The reason for the location is technical and elegant. Only the extreme heat of a natural mana volcano can melt the specific alloys required to produce high-spec adventurer equipment at the level Jaryong needs. Standard forges cannot get hot enough. Standard temperatures produce standard equipment. And what Jaryong needs is not standard. Jaryong carries something into the Boiling Abyss. His father's staff. Weathered, heavy, looking like something you would find in a prop room or a junk pile. But inside it, hidden in the wooden core, revealed only to the right instruments or the right eyes, is a spine of Titan steel. One of the hardest, most mana-conductive materials that exists in the dungeon ecosystem. His father had this weapon started, had commissioned it 30 years ago. And then something happened that meant it was never finished. Zeke warns him before they go in, the smith he's about to meet is not human. From the smoke and the heat of the forge, emerging like something from a myth, comes Arges. An elder titan, rank B. 8 feet tall, built with the kind of mass that makes your perception of scale recalibrate involuntarily. One eye burning, literally glowing with the internal energy of a creature that has been alive and forging in volcanic heat for longer than most institutions have existed. And that single burning eye lands on the staff in Jaryong's hands. Everything stops. Where did you get that? Arges bellows. The mana shockwave of his voice, uncontrolled, involuntary, the product of a creature that was never designed to modulate its output for human comfort, nearly takes Saram off her feet. Arges recognizes the weapon. He should. He started it. 30 years ago, Yu Xiong came to the boiling abyss with a commission. He was building towards something, a technique called force parrying, a combat style where instead of blocking or dodging, you redirect the kinetic energy of the incoming attack. To do this against the force output of a 7-star monster, a dragon, required a weapon that could vibrate at the same frequency as a dragon's aura. Arges had started the tempering process, had gotten partway through. And then Yu Xiong, because Yu Xiong was always doing this, always prioritizing someone else's crisis over his own business, had disappeared to rescue someone. The weapon was left unfinished. Incomplete. The Titan's forge begins to flare as the memory hits him. He looks at Jaryong, and what he sees is not just Yu Xiong's son. He senses the same rhythm in the boy's mana. The same technical frequency that made Yu Xiong capable of force parrying at the level of a dragon's output. The blood heir. Not just biological, technical. Jaryong has the same fundamental mana architecture as his father, refined and adapted through his own unique development. Arges makes a deal. He will finish the weapon, but not as Yu Xiong's weapon, as Jaryong's weapon. Tailored to Jaryong's frame skipping style, to his specific balanced stat distribution, to the way his mana flows differently from his father's because he is a different person who was forged differently. The price, Jaryong must prove he is worthy of the Dragon Slayer title. A sparring match with the Titan himself. The story does not dwell extensively on the sparring match's mechanics, but the implication is clear. Jaryong survives what he needs to survive, demonstrates what he needs to demonstrate, and earns the agreement. The forge begins. Titan steel. Molten mana from the volcanic core. The specific tempering process that can only happen at these temperatures with these materials in this environment. Arges works with the focus of someone doing something they haven't done in 3 decades, finishing a masterpiece that was interrupted. Except it is not the same masterpiece anymore. It is something new. Something built for a different person with a different style and a different kind of strength. And while the forge works, let us talk about what Chapter 20 reveals about Yu Xiong. Because this chapter drops a piece of information that recontextualizes everything we have known about him. The flashback 25 years ago. A burning city, ruins, monsters. And a young Yu Xiong standing between the destruction and everything behind it, alone. A force parrier, a combatant class so rare that most people in the current era haven't even heard of it. The ability to take the kinetic output of creatures whose force would collapse buildings and redirect it. To be the technical instrument by which the impossible force of a 7-star monster is neutralized, not by matching it but by using it. The Dragon Slayer was not just a nickname. It was not just a title given to someone who killed something impressive. It was a technical description of what Yu Xiong could do. He could stand in front of things that should kill everyone and redirect the force of them. He was the buffer between civilization and destruction. And the story is beginning to imply, quietly, carefully, that what happened on the 7-star raid was not failure. Was not cowardice. Was something else entirely. Something that Jaryong is going to have to reckon with when the time comes. The staff is completed. Titan steel core. Arges is forging. Calibrated to Jaryong's specific mana frequency. A weapon that can now actually handle what Jaryong is capable of outputting, that will not shatter in his hands when he stops holding back. For the first time, Jaryong has a weapon worthy of his actual capability. He is not finished becoming, but he now has the tools to become faster. A weapon is only as good as the person wielding it. Jaryong knows this. His father taught him this. 2 years of smuggling reinforced it constantly. You can have the right tool and still fail if your execution is wrong, if your technical fluidity is not matched to the tool's capabilities. So before the real tests begin, there is training. His trainer, Han Chialking, a veteran rank C tank. Not a legend. Not a white class ranker. Not famous. But the specific kind of professional who has survived long enough at high enough difficulty levels to understand things that legends sometimes forget because they are too far above the problems to remember them. Chialking looks at Jaryong's stat distribution. Looks at the BBB numbers. Looks at the frame skipping. Looks at the needle and the swing. And he identifies the gap. A smuggler fights to survive, Chialking says. A warrior fights to dominate. The distinction sounds simple. It is not. Jaryong's entire technical education came from necessity. From dungeons that were trying to kill him, from opponents who were trying to take his loot, from a world that did not care whether he succeeded or not. He learned to fight in the most uncontrolled, unpredictable environment possible. This has given him extraordinary things. The instincts. The real-time reading. The zero-waste efficiency that stunned Zeke Eskersnaram. The ability to perform under genuine pressure because he has performed under genuine pressure, constantly, for 2 years. But it also left gaps. Specifically, Jaryong's combat style is optimized for reactive efficiency. For reading what is happening and responding to it with minimum waste. This is exceptional. But a full professional warrior does not just react, they control. They set the conditions. They do not wait for the fight to happen and then optimize their response, they shape the fight before it fully forms. Chialking uses weighted gravity mana in their sparring, a technique that slows Jaryong down, imposes friction on his movements, forces him to operate within the technical framework of professional combat rather than the lawless improvisation of dungeon smuggling. Jaryong struggles. This is important, and the story is deliberate about showing it. He is not immediately perfect. He is not secretly always the best at everything. Chialking's training exposes a genuine weakness, and Jaryong has to work to address it. He begins to understand something his father's training gave him as a foundation but did not fully complete, the difference between the moves and the mastery. The needle and the swing are techniques. Outstanding ones. But techniques are not the same as a complete combat philosophy. His father gave him the building blocks and trusted the world to provide the rest. The world provided it through 2 years of dungeons. Chialking is providing the formal structure that makes what the dungeons built into something organized and deployable at the highest level. Your father's training was the foundation, Jaryong realizes during this period. I have to build the skyscraper. The training is interrupted by the world doing what it does, producing a crisis at the worst time. A horned horror escapes its containment. Danger rating 2 stars. The horned horror is classified by the military as an unstoppable threat in the sense that conventional weaponry has no meaningful effect on it. Its defining feature is an obsidian black carapace, a mono-reinforced shell that bullets bounce off, that standard combat techniques compress against without penetrating, that requires a level of focused force delivery that most professionals do not have access to. The official attack squad is not on site yet. Jaryong and Chialking are the only professionals present. Jaryong looks at the creature. Processes. The standard needle will not work. The needle works by finding gaps, penetrating between armor plates, threading into the spaces where the target is exposed. But the horned horror's carapace does not have the right gap architecture for a standard needle approach. He needs something else. Something his father warned him about. Something that lives at the dangerous edge of his capability. The fourth shell. The fourth shell is a mana compression technique. The mechanism, compressing mana into a high-density shell around the tip of the weapon, so concentrated that when it makes contact with a surface, it detonates. Not with fire or lightning or any elemental expression, with kinetic force. A concentrated explosive expansion of compressed mana energy at the precise point of impact. The danger is this: if the compression fails, if the shell collapses inward rather than outward at the moment of contact, the back pressure goes the other way. Into Jaryong's arm. Through the weapon. Back into the body that generated it. The technical consequence of failure is that Jaryong's own arm gets shattered by his own technique. His father warned him about this. Specifically, not yet Yu Xiong had said the last time the technique came up. But Yu Xiong is not here. Xiaoqing cannot handle a horned horror alone. The official squad is not on site. There is only Jaryong and a decision. The horned horror lunges. The carapace glows with red mana energy, its own defensive capability ramping up as it senses threat. Jaryong uses frame skipping to position himself beneath the creature's center of mass. Not beside it. Beneath it. The specific geometry that puts him in the maximum leverage position relative to the point he is targeting. He compresses. The mana builds, visible now, visibly straining the weapon, the staff vibrating at a frequency that is right at the edge of what even a Titan steel weapon can sustain. He hits. A blue mana shockwave expands from the point of contact. The horned horror's obsidian carapace, the shell that tanks deflect off, that military equipment bounces off, disintegrates. Not cracked. Not compromised. Turned to dust. The concentrated force of the fourth shell executes precisely outward at full power. Jaryong's arm is smoking from his own mana heat. But the arm is intact. The monster is not. He sits down. His lungs are burning. His mana is at a point of depletion that he's never hit before. His ability stat was pushed to 120% capacity. Beyond the theoretical maximum of what his body should be able to sustain for any length of time. Zeke arrives with serum and medical equipment. He looks at the remains of the horned horror. At Jaryong. At what would have needed to happen to produce this outcome. And Jaryong, sitting in the aftermath of his own first real limit break, experiences something he hasn't experienced before in 2 years of dungeon work. Not relief. Not pride exactly, joy. The specific, clean, profound joy of mastery. Of doing a thing that was at the edge of possible and finding that you were exactly capable enough to reach across that edge and pull it back. The joy that his father must have felt in those 20 years of dungeons, in those moments of technical execution that nobody else could have performed before everything fell apart. He was not fighting for the money in that moment. He was fighting to see how far his father's effort, how far his effort built on his father's foundation could actually take him. The answer is beginning to reveal itself, further than anyone expected. In a world where your lineage is your destiny, Jaryong is a ghost, a smuggler's son hiding in the lion's den of humanity's elite. He survived the first trials, played the part of the underdog, and kept his true power buried deep. But as the shadows of the dungeon raid department grow longer, the secret he's carrying is becoming too heavy to hide. The world thinks they know what a smuggler is capable of, but they are about to find out that some bloodlines don't just survive. They conquer. And the real test. It's only just beginning. This is the end of part 1 of Season 1.